Bank of America out with a new report teaching investors about the robot revolution and how to best invest in the rise of machines and artificial intelligence. Bank of America Merrill Lynch head of Thematic investing, Sarbjit Nahal, joins us right now to talk more about it. Dagen Mcdowell also joining the conversation. Good to see you, sir.
Good to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. Well, we know robotics has taken over a number of areas within our work life, our personal life. How do you invest based on that?
That's right. Well, I think they're becoming increasingly ubiquitous across our life as providers of labor, safety, mobility, as well as convenience. 2014, you take a look at a space like industrial robots, it was an all-time record year. We were up to 229,000 robot systems being sold around the world. That's up 29% year on year. So what we did in the report is set out a number of different entry points for investors. Industrials are clearly going to be one of the most obvious spaces, but we also think there's huge opportunities in terms of the self-driving car, drones, both from a commercial and a military perspective, financials, and healthcare, amongst other areas.
Oh, so I was reading the report. Robots are likely to be performing 45% of manufacturing tasks within the next 10 years. Right now, it's only 10%. Talk about the potential job destruction just in that industry alone.
That's right. I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that there's such huge room for growth in terms of penetration. Only 10% of tasks are currently using automation or robots. You look at levels of robot penetration around the world, and we're only talking about 66 robots per 10,000 employees. You look at the Japanese auto sector, we're up to 1,520 robots. So long term, this does pose significant risks, particularly for jobs like retail, for cashiers, for office admin. We're talking about 47% of jobs at risk here in the U.S. and 33% of jobs at risk in the U.K.
Wow.
So along those lines, Sarbjit, the baskets that you create for the thematic investing portfolios and strategies, is there a mechanism where you could short stocks that might be hurt by some of these themes?
What we try to do is identify the areas that we think are clearly going to benefit from both a short and a long-term perspective, and then identify some of the areas that are going to be at risk. And I think this plays out in different ways. You know, in a 1 to 3 year time horizon, you want to be playing some of the suppliers, the people who are providing the components or the robot systems. If we look out from a 3 to 10 year period, this is going to clearly become an opportunity for certain companies here in the U.S. It's going to be a massive chance to reshore, for which there's massive political support. And it's also going to be a means for a lot of companies to cut down their costs. Longer term, when we're looking out 25 years out, we have to think, what happens to all these people who are going to be displaced? You know, the closest analogy you can make is ag, which used to employ 50% of Americans in 1900. When they were displaced, there were other industries to absorb them. I'm not sure that's the same case today.
Your report's very optimistic on the growth that we could see in this area, robots. I'm wondering what could derail this robot revolution. Something that comes to mind is the risk of hacking, and in the industrial space, for example.
Cybersecurity is one of our core themes, and it's one of the major underlying risks across the board, both with regards to robots as well as artificial intelligence. We've seen what has happened with regards to everything from airplanes through to Jeeps being hacked over the course of the last few months. And I actually think that cyber as well as privacy concerns are at the forefront of consumer and stakeholder thinking in terms of acceptance. So I think that's a major barrier. I also think that we need more in the way of regulation. If we're going to see greater use of things like self-driving cars or drones in the delivery space, we need more proactive regulation.
But isn't there too much regulation? Because you see the FAA, Amazon has complained mightily that the FAA can't even keep up with its innovation in drones. That's why it doesn't even know how to handle the use of drones in a commercial way.
I would agree. This is a space where the technology is moving at such a parabolic level that regulation is 1, 2, or even 5 steps behind in many of these cases. But the reality is that we are going to have to move towards greater regulation. The FAA has said that they will come out with draft regulation by the end of this year. The European Commission is looking to pass draft regulation by next year. So commercial drones are definitely going to be a significant growth space. That's a market we think could grow to over $5 billion by the end of this decade.
Who loses in this new normal of robotics on taking out jobs?
Long term, unfortunately, I do believe that it's going to be the people at the bottom and the middle of the pyramid. You take a look at American jobs, and 1/3 of jobs here are retail, are waiters, are office admin. These are going to be the jobs that are at greatest risk of displacement. On the flip side, it's going to be jobs that involve high levels of knowledge, analysis, creativity, which are at the lowest risk of being displaced. So there is a risk of increasing labor polarization between the haves and the have-nots from a long-term
You need to arm
perspective.
yourself with the right training, for sure, in this new normal. Sarbjit, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time today. Sarbjit Nahal joining us from Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Dagen will